It's been quite a stressful week at work. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing a quick wrap up of all the books I read this week during a very busy time at work. Now, I'm usually really busy towards the quarter ends simply because that is when all the deadlines are due and that's when I have to do a lot of work for the people that I work with. And because I was really going through the emotions of the big sad and the big anxiety and the big depression, I decided to cheer myself up with the only way that I know how, which is to listen to historical romance audiobooks. And I specifically chose authors that I really liked and that are my favorite and that I thought that would really make the process a lot easier and to make it less painful and to make myself not cry during work because I had something else that was playing in the background that would cheer me up. Anyways, long story short, I just also want to preface this video and all my reviews that I want to be speaking about in the next few minutes or so that I was going through it. Like, my emotions were flatlining. I did not feel anything at all. It usually happens when you work like 12-hour, 13-hour days when you have to work at a constant speed. So it really impacted my reading, I feel like. I just wanted to note that because I feel like it may have impacted my reading for this specific video. It may have impacted the ratings I gave to the books, but I'll try to be as diplomatic as possible and I'll give you the reasons why sometimes my ratings are lower than others and also lower than basically the general rating on Goodreads. I also wanted to note that this video was actually inspired in part by Jessica from Peace Love Books, mostly because she was telling me how she was reading Lorraine Heath's backlisted copies, like her books, and I haven't read the series that she was reading, so I thought that it would be fun if I challenged myself to see if I could finish the whole quartet of the Scoundrels of St. James series in 1 week, and I managed to do so, and I also finished her other series, which is called London's Greatest Lovers. So let's get started with a review. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about is actually this one. It's book number 1 of her series. I think it's called London's Greatest Lovers. This one is called Passions of a Wicked Earl, and I read this one a couple months ago. So it wasn't actually during this week, but I did not like this series. I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars, and because it was the first book in the trilogy, it made me take a long break from continuing with the series because I wasn't sure if I would really enjoy the themes in the series. So the whole idea of London's Greatest Lovers is that our heroes are really great lovers. They are womanizers. They love bedding women. They love bringing women pleasure, which is really fun. But with historical romances, and I guess with my mood, I really wanted a hero that wasn't so much of a ladies' man and someone who would go and be unfaithful to his wife or to the person that they might like or to the person that they're courting or to the heroine in general. So with this book, I struggled to really enjoy it in that fact. So what happens is that Lorraine Heath also writes really complicated and intricate plots with our characters diving into very unethical and sometimes borderline weird plots that make our characters kind of be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Just for the people who haven't read Lorraine Heath yet, sometimes I really like that about her because it's usually a very angsty and an enticing tale. Sometimes it doesn't work out because it gets a little too complicated. And I feel like that this is what happened with London's Greatest Lovers. So this one specifically is about our hero and heroine who are set to be married, but our heroine is very nervous about her marriage to our hero. So she decides to try to break off the marriage. And our hero actually is excited about it, but he's not telling her that, he will be a very faithful husband and he would be a really kind man to her. Instead, he is kind of letting her feel those fears herself. And so she enlists the help of her fiance's younger brother, and he catches her with his younger brother in bed. Nothing actually happened, but it was just like the scene that made our hero kind of break off that marriage, and that's exactly what she wanted. Fast forward a couple years, they meet each other again because they both need to find an heir, and our heroine needs to go back to his arms because she needs money and she needs something from him. So this is like a second chance romance where our heroine kind of has to grovel and kind of apologize for what happened all those years back ago with their engagement and things like that. And this book was just so much it was just, like we had two very flawed characters, right? And our hero wasn't exactly like celibate during like the whole time that they were separated. And I just didn't find any aspects and characteristics of the hero that I really enjoyed. I also thought our heroine was very weak for doing something like that and to cause all this unnecessary trouble. And I thought she was just really annoying at some points too as well. So unfortunately, I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars. This is actually my first 2 out of 5 star rating for Lorraine Heath's Regency historical romances. I once gave one 2 out of 5 stars to her Western novel called Texas Glory because Western novels aren't my thing anyways, but this one I just didn't really like. Okay, so the next book in that series is this one called Waking Up with the Duke, and this one follows a plotline that is a little bit off the rails. It's literally different from all the other Regency historical romances that you probably picked. Her plots are getting weird when we go back into the times when she just started writing Regency romances. This one involves our hero who has a best friend, and that best friend has a wife. But unfortunately for him, he has health issues. And if I remember correctly, he was bound to a wheelchair. He couldn't walk anymore and he couldn't satisfy his wife. And he wanted his wife to be really happy and to have the marriage and to have that, sexual relations that he couldn't provide for her. So he asks his best friend, which is our hero, to bed his wife in hopes of impregnating the wife. And our heroine, who is the wife, is shocked by this plan because she wants to be faithful to her husband. She wants to have a family with the husband or not if they can't do it. And so she doesn't like this idea at all. She turns it down, she runs away, and she tells him how dare you put me up on this mart and to sell my body to your best friend. But somehow along the way, they managed to convince her that this is the best route. So she decides to go with it. So she and him kind of go off into this estate. They spend a lot of time getting to know each other. They take their time being friends to lovers. And then they eventually bed. And they have this really deepening relationship where they are constantly talking, having fun in bed, and, carrying out what a normal marriage would look like. But they know that their time is going to end because once she's pregnant, she's going to go back to her husband. And then that's when it gets a little bit tricky because they obviously are in love with each other. Now, I didn't like this book because it's clearly cheating. This whole book is based on cheating. And it's based on an open relationship. And I guess it's I don't really like open relationships in historical romances because I like it when our hero and heroine are destined for each other and that they are stuck with each other from the beginning to the very end. I don't like cheating in my romances anyways. So this open relationship concept was really hard for me to get into at first. But then when I started reading it more, I kind of was more open-minded towards an open relationship. And then the ending with the giant twist that happened, and then it was glossed over, and then it was just left me befuddled and very confused. So this was actually a book that I think I gave a 2.5 out of 5 stars, but it rounded up to 3 stars on a Goodreads because I liked their relationship when they developed between friends to lovers, but I absolutely hated the twist, and I thought it was super weird. Okay, so the last book in the series, if I remember correctly, this is the last book in the series. This one's called Pleasures of a Notorious Gentleman. This one involves our hero who is the black sheep character, and he is, very well known, and he's a great lover, and then he goes on to the war, but he comes back as a different man. He actually suffers amnesia because he got hit in the head and he doesn't remember a chunk of his life. So what happens is that there's this really beautiful woman that shows up on his doorstep with a babe in her hand, and then now she's claiming that they were once lovers and that this baby that she's carrying is actually his and it was from their one night with consequences. And our hero is shocked by this because he doesn't want to be a father, but he willingly accepts his duties to become a really good father to the child while also trying to get to know this woman that he apparently once bed. But deep down, she has a secret. And that secret is that this babe is not hers and that she is just taking it on for someone who had the babe and didn't want it. So she's just kind of like a stepmother to the babe, and she's just taking care of it. But she wants to keep this a secret because she knows that the hero would absolutely kick her out if she is caught in this lie. So they carry out with their relationship, they fall in love, and then obviously things unravel towards the end, because that's exactly what happens when you lie in a romance novel. The liar gets caught and it becomes super messy. And this one, I gave it, I think, a 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I just didn't really like the lying. I thought that our villain in this book was ridiculous at times because she was just so awful, and our heroine was just so nice to take care of this babe that wasn't hers. And then our hero was an idiot because despite her lying to him in the first place, she never once showed that she was a bad person ever in the story. So I just didn't really like our characters once again. I also just want to preface and note that these 3 books include a lot of trigger warnings. Lorraine Heath is definitely not shy from talking about relevant things that actually happened back in the Regency time period. You know, there's no really strict rules towards things, so lots of things happen and lots of people get hurt from it. So if you guys want to check out trigger warnings, definitely check out my reviews on Goodreads and check out other people's reviews as well. So the next book that I picked up was book number 1 in her series that is called The Scoundrels of St. James series, I believe. And this one's called In Bed with the Devil. This is the first book. And I really like this series, mostly because the back covers are really pretty. So if anybody wants to collect the books, definitely do, because the artwork is gorgeous. This book follows our heroine who has a friend who is in a very sticky situation, and she can't stand how just because she's a woman and just because, you know, her friends are women, they don't have the rights and they don't have any sides of the law to protect her. So she takes it on herself to have someone kill someone who is hurting her friend, and that someone is just our hero. Like she wants to hire our hero to protect her and her friend. And our hero is known to be like the devil himself because he's known to have an ill reputation. He grew up in a very dirty and dark background, and people thought that he killed someone. So of course he's going to kill people again. So she ends up trying to hire him. He, in return for payment, wants her to teach the girl that he once proposed to be a proper young miss, because the person that she proposed to is not welcome in society because she grew from a lower class. And so our heroine reluctantly agrees. So this romance novel follows the kind of like that trope where I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you, but I fell in love with you in the end also. Anyways, so this story, I thought it was a very average romance. Nothing really special happened between our 2 characters that made my heart flutter. The chemistry was like kind of there, but it wasn't anything that like surprised me and invoked an emotion deep within me that made me want to give it a higher than 4 out of 5 stars. It followed the trope that I knew so well. It followed the plot line that I knew so well. So nothing really surprised me here. So I ended up giving it only a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I also thought that our hero and heroine were just too stubborn towards their emotions with each other. I wish they confessed earlier about their feelings because I felt like it was just too far stretched and it was too slow burn, in my opinion. Okay, so the next book in the series is this one called Between the Devil and Desire, and this one also has a very pretty like back cover too as well. I got such a funny addition too because the font of the title of the book is supposed to be white, but then it's printed in black, so I think it was just like a printing error. Anyways, so this book follows our story of our heroine who has recently been widowed, and she actually has a son, and that son is the heir of the dukedom or whatever the piece of land is, the estate. I don't know if it's actually a dukedom, I forgot. But anyways, so to her surprise, everything left in the will is directed to our hero. And our hero grew up as a street urchin, grew up in a very, very like bad background. And she is shocked by this because she thinks that her husband must have gone crazy. Why would like her husband leave everything to him and not to her and the heir? Well, the heir gets something, but like she herself is basically left penniless. So they are forced to live with each other on the estate because he doesn't have the heart to kick her out, and he also wants to take care of the heir because that's like a part of like the rules and like the contract and the will and everything like that. So they are forced to get to know each other. They're forced to spend time with each other. And our hero is forced to take care of this young boy who always wants his mommy, who is always sucking his thumb, and who's really adorable and really cute. And I like the little boy. I had no problems with the child whatsoever. When we were reading this book, like, you could clearly tell that our hero had a soft spot for children simply because he grew up on the streets as a child and he needed to defend himself and he had to learn life the hard way. So he has a soft spot for him. But there's also something lingering in the background that, you know, something happened to him as a child that impacted him like this, that made him think like this. And that in itself deserves a trigger warning too as well. So definitely go check out reviews. So they become this like broken, haphazard family that is pieced together. And it was interesting. It was really cute. I really liked our hero getting to know the child and taking care of the child. But unfortunately, I just didn't like how in the end, his backstory was kind of like really rushed and glossed over. I wished we spent more time dealing with it and like learning more about it, because at the end, it just felt like, what was the point of me telling me like that in like one chapter? I wished we had more time to digest what happened. So this one I gave another 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was just an average read for me too as well. Nothing really special happened. Our heroine was actually kind of really annoying at some points. I was reading the reviews from other people and they pointed out some things that made me question her too as well, because she was a little bit wishy-washy. She was told as like a really good mother, but then she herself was like, you know, not really caring about the child in some issues, in some areas of the book. Also, the twist in this book was super weird and I could not understand it. Like, I could not stomach it. Like, it was just so weird. It was so weird. I didn't really like it. And that's why I had to lower my rating too as well. Okay, so the next book in the series is this one called Surrender to the Devil. And this one follows a relationship where it's higher class and the lower class. So our heroine is from the lower class. She grew up on the streets. She was actually sold very earlier on to a brothel and nobody could save her in the nick of time. So she was actually sexually assaulted at that brothel because she was young and she didn't know what was happening. And it's really sad. It's very heartbreaking, but she grew up with that trauma. So she learned how to help other kids in that situation. So she's very, very into her charity work, very, very into helping the children on the streets, while also being a bookkeeper in the gentleman's club that everybody helps run in this series. I forgot to mention that. Anyways, so she is approached by our hero, who is a duke. And of course, our duke is fascinated by her beauty and by her charms. And then we have like 3 other guys from the quartet trying to protect her because she is like the little sister that they've never had and they grew up together on the streets. So it was really cute to see them all kind of like yell at the duke and being like, if you break her heart, I'll break your neck. It's one of those like brotherhood and sisterhood stories that is really great if you like those. So our hero and heroine kind of have this relationship where he asks her if she just wants to be kind of like a side piece, and she, being in her late 20s, really doesn't have anything else going on in her life, just wants to experience life for the first time, actually accepts it, and they have a great time dealing with each other and falling in love with each other and things like that. So overall, this book was average. Like, it was nothing really special to me. Like, our hero and heroine was more of a friends to benefits and then fell in love in the end. But honestly, like, it was kind of boring. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. And I don't like the trope of how the lower class can't marry the higher class. I just don't care for it. Like, okay. Like, I know back then you can't do it, but like, still, like, I don't care for those tropes in my historical romance novels. Okay, so the last book in the series is this one called Midnight Pleasures with a Scoundrel, and then this one also has a very pretty back cover too as well. So this one follows our heroine who is sneaking around and she meets our hero. And our hero is a detective. He's like an inspector. He knows his people. He knows how to read people. He can solve crimes. He's really smart. And he was once in love with the girl from this book. So it's really weird. He has to get over his relationship and with this girl in this book, like Franny from this book. So the main heroine. And he thought that she was going to marry her. But then obviously she fell in love and married someone else. So he doesn't expect to have any other woman in his life, but his eye catches on our heroine. And they have this magical night in the gardens, and they have this magical night together, but then suddenly a case lands on his desk and that someone has actually been murdered. And the first suspect that they have is our heroine. And our hero is like, it can't be our heroine because I spent the night with her. And turns out there's this whole other plot that's happening with her story. Our heroine wants to avenge for her sister because her sister died, and now she wants to get revenge because she hates the fact that these criminals roam the streets and they have no repercussions for all the things that they've done to other people. So they take justice in their own hands, and they're kind of like, roaming the streets and getting back at people. So this involves our hero dealing with his own ethical morals because he is an inspector. He wants to take in villains, have a proper trial, and let the justice system deal with it. He doesn't want to take justice on his own hands. But at the same time, he listens to our heroine and starts to understand that the law and the justice system is failing her and it's not working for her. So he's kind of stuck in this like really weird moral dilemma. And it's really interesting. Now, I really like the plot of this book. I thought it was gripping. It kept me interested in the audiobook. I was really like trying to like digest as much as possible. But the thing is that I felt like the romance in this one actually took a back seat. So if you guys are looking for an adventurous and like a really suspenseful novel, then this one's for you. But keep in mind that the romance in this is not as strong as I would have liked. And I ended up giving this one a closer to 4 out of 5 stars than the other books. But I still had to give it like a 3 out of 5 stars because I thought that for the romance, it just lacked. But this one is ultimately my favorite out of all the Lorraine Heath novels that I read this week. Anyways, that is it for all the historical romance novels from Lorraine Heath that I read this week to cope with depression, anxiety, whatever the freak outs I had this week. It's going to not get better. Well, it's going to get better next month, for sure, in December when everybody takes holidays and takes breaks and I get to take some breaks. So do not worry about me and my mental health. I'm still here. I'm still trying to thrive, and it's great. I'm doing great. Hopefully you guys are doing great too. Remember to read your favorite novels. Remember to read your favorite authors whenever you feel down. Watch some YouTube videos. Drink a cup of tea. Take care of yourself, guys. And I'll see you guys in a new video. Bye.